Kate Jackson was once the kind of face that only had to appear on a screen for all of America to hold its breath. Not because she was the loudest or the most glamorous, but because she was the smart angel, the one who gave Charlie's Angels its intelligence, its poise, its backbone. And then, suddenly she vanished. No major scandal, no grand farewell, no flashy comeback. Just one day when audiences quietly realized they weren't seeing her anymore. But Kate didn't leave Hollywood because she had faded. She left because she understood too well the price of fame. Behind her cool, sharp beauty and composed smile were years of being crushed by 14-hour shooting days, production meetings where power always belonged to someone else, and the constant sense that she was being turned into a product rather than treated as a human being. While the world worshipped the three angels as symbols of feminism, they themselves were living inside fame's invisible cage. And that wasn't even all. Because the moment she stepped away from the spotlight, Kate stepped into another kind of battle, one without an audience to cheer her on. Breast cancer twice, open-heart surgery, painful romantic breakups, and even a financial shock that dragged her into court. A woman who once stood at the very top of American television ultimately chose to live quietly on a farm, as if she were trying to protect the part of her life that fame had almost stolen away. To understand why Kate Jackson could walk away from the spotlight with such a cold, decisive choice, you have to go back to where that personality was formed. A youth shaped not by Hollywood freedom, but by discipline, order, and the feeling that everything in life had already been scheduled in advance. Kate was born on October 29, 1948, in Birmingham, Alabama, into a comfortable family. Her father was a businessman, executive, which placed Kate in a kind of chosen education. She attended Brook Hill School for Girls in Mountain Brook, an environment that didn't simply teach knowledge, but trained manners, propriety, and even the ability to control emotion. It was the kind of childhood with no material lack, yet it could quietly create an invisible pressure. You had to become a proper girl, you had to behave, you had to maintain an image. When she reached college age, Kate enrolled at the University of Mississippi, majoring in history and joining the Kappa Gamma sorority. But the deeper she went down that path, the more she realized she didn't belong to safe, predictable turns. Kate left Mississippi and transferred to Birmingham Southern College, a more liberal arts-oriented school, to study speech and theater history. That change wasn't just a transfer, it was the first sign that she didn't want to live inside a ready-made mold. At the end of the school year, Kate left Alabama for Stowe Playhouse in Vermont as an apprentice, then moved alone to New York City and studied at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. For a girl raised in the discipline of the American South, stepping into New York, chaotic, cold, and fiercely competitive, was like throwing herself into fire. But that period taught Kate something crucial. If she wanted to survive, she had to build her own strength, without waiting for anyone to lift her up. And from there, the road toward American television began to open, in a very real way, not through red carpets, but through the back corridors, learning how the machine worked before becoming part of it. Kate Jackson didn't enter the industry as a future star. She came in as a quiet observer, standing at the edge of the lights, watching how the entertainment machine ran before allowing herself to step into it. In New York, she worked as an NBC page and gave tours at Rockefeller Center. That job taught her something blunt. Television wasn't magic. It was industry, and anyone who didn't understand that industry would eventually be swallowed by it. Years later, when Kate was famous enough to stand on the stage of Saturday Night Live, the detail of the woman who once guided NBC tours became a bitter irony. She had once introduced the dream to audiences, before the dream itself pushed her to exhaustion. That mindset shaped her earliest roles, too. No explosion, no noise, just steady accumulation of credibility. Dark Shadows, 1970-1971, gave her an image far from the later TV beauty stereotype, a role with dark, mysterious undertones. Daphne Harridge, almost silent yet haunting. In supernatural storytelling, a single glance and the right timing are enough to burn into memory. Kate learned how to create gravity without showing off. In Night of Dark Shadows, 1971, she appeared again in the film version as Tracy Collins, a small step from television framing to the bigger screen, a kind of trial by fire for any young actress who wanted to go further. Around the same period, Kate also showed up in The Jimmy Stewart Show, 2 episodes. Small parts like these didn't bring fame, but they carried a different kind of value. They placed you on a set, forced you to learn professional discipline, and demanded that you prove you could stand steady among people who were already legends. The real breakthrough arrived when Kate joined The Rookies from 1972 as nurse Jill Danko. This was where she began to build her quiet power, reliability. Jill Danko wasn't a role designed to ignite headlines, and certainly not to turn her into a beauty symbol, but she was the kind of character that made audiences believe in the situation, believe in the emotion, and believe that this woman existed in real life, not just to decorate the frame. During that time, Kate didn't just learn how to act with solid control. She also quietly studied directing and editing. And once a woman learns to see the power structure of a set, she becomes much harder to manipulate like a puppet. Even her side projects in those years revealed that Kate wasn't taking the easy road. Limbo, 1972, an early independent film touching the raw wound of the Vietnam War, focusing on wives and families of soldiers missing in action or killed, wasn't a safe role for a television actress trying to rise quickly. It was heavy. It was sharp. It forced people to stare into the dry, brutal waiting of those left behind. Then came Death Scream, 1975, a television film recreating the Kitty Genovese case, a painful and haunting social story. Those choices accidentally exposed Kate's professional personality early on. She wasn't chasing instant spotlight. She was chasing the feeling of being a real actress. Even if the price of being believed was fatigue, loneliness, and the willingness to move slower than everyone else. And that moving slower, role by role, difficult project by difficult project, day after day inside the machinery of television, quietly forged the image Charlie's Angels would later need. A woman who was beautiful but trustworthy, sharp but not hollow, radiant yet born from shadow. Because Kate Jackson rose through trust rather than noise when the biggest opportunity of her life finally arrived. It didn't come like a glittering gift. It came like a cold door opening inside the system. From The Rookies, Kate had already caught the attention of the people running American television at the time, especially Aaron Spelling. He wasn't looking for a pretty flower to place in the frame. He needed someone strong enough to keep an entire machine moving on rhythm. And Kate, with her calm discipline and her ability to stand firm under pressure, became the perfect choice. When the new project first landed on the table, its original name was The Alley Cats. 3 girls, 3 cats, designed to seduce the audience. But Kate was never the kind of woman willing to be reduced to jewelry. Even before cameras rolled, she pushed to replace cats with angels. One word. But it changed the entire meaning. From wild instinct to an image that was seductive and powerful, beautiful and dangerous at the same time. The project briefly went by Harry's Angels, and then finally locked into Charlie's Angels, a title that would later become legend. And what's unsettling is this. While the public worshiped the show as a feminist symbol, very few people ever realized the seed of that symbol began inside Kate's own mind. But Kate didn't only contribute a word, she contributed backbone. On the day they shot the pilot, Kate was initially assigned the role of Kelly Garrett. On paper, it was a glamorous part, but it wasn't her true self. Kate understood the only kind of power a woman could claim inside a male-dominated system: the right to place herself in the correct position. She believed she belonged as Sabrina Duncan, the sharp, strategic, intelligent woman. Kate fought for the role change through pure professional instinct and solid argument, and she won. Kate became Sabrina, and Jaclyn Smith moved into Kelly. It wasn't just a casting switch. It was the moment a woman put herself on the right track and then forced the entire train to follow. In the fall of 1976, Charlie's Angels premiered and exploded like a cultural bomb. Within weeks, America entered a new addiction, a form of pop worship that felt almost religious. 3 women appeared in dazzling outfits, perfect hair, chasing criminals with dream-like beauty, yet carrying a presence that refused to be dismissed. Kate Jackson was the brain. Sabrina had elegance, severity, and the cold authority of someone who understood power games. Farrah Fawcett was the storm. Jill Monroe became the beauty icon of the decade, to the point that the red swimsuit poster practically turned into America's youth scripture, a pin-up dream millions taped to their walls. Jaclyn Smith was the balance. Kelly Garrett was both soft and solid, keeping the trio from tipping too far into any extreme. Together, they weren't just a cast, they were perfect chemistry, the kind that produced a craze ABC had never even dared to imagine. But the very moment the world called them angels, the machine began draining them, one drop at a time. Behind the lights were endless days, 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, layered on top of photo shoots, interviews, publicity events, appearances where they seemed to have no right to feel tired. On screen, the show sold female independence. Off-screen, their lives were scheduled and controlled by others like merchandise that had to be shipped on time. Kate didn't hate the work. She hated the feeling of being pressed flat into an image. Beautiful, sparkling, but empty. She wanted deeper characters, heavier dialogue. The system only cared that hair stayed big, outfits stayed eye-catching, and ratings stayed high. Fame rose so fast, the people living inside it barely had time to breathe. The 3 angels appeared on the cover of Time, becoming national symbols, a form of television mythology stamped official. Kate was now the face people trusted, respected, even admired for her intelligence. In 1979, she was big enough to host Saturday Night Live, Season 4, Episode 13. Yet in the glow of stardom, Kate mentioned her past as an NBC page, a small detail that felt like a needle under the skin. This woman understood the machinery from the inside, which meant she could never pretend innocence like a rising star. Sabrina Duncan became both her peak and her most elegant cage. The more famous Kate grew, the more she was swallowed whole by the schedule, by the repetitive scripts, by the sense that her life had turned into nothing but labor. Kate's loneliness wasn't romantic loneliness. It was the loneliness of a woman turned into a symbol while still starving to be an artist. After 3 seasons, endurance reached its limit. In 1979, Kate left Charlie's Angels, not a casual career move, but something closer to saving her lungs in a room that had run out of oxygen. She didn't walk away because she stopped loving acting. She walked away because she knew If she didn't cut something off completely, the rest of her would die first. And just as Kate tried to break out of television's cage and reach for film, the dream so many TV actors chase, another crack appeared. The story of the role of Joanna in Kramer versus Kramer. At one point, people claimed Kate had the opportunity, had asked for time to pursue the film, but the brutal series schedule refused to release her. In the end, the role went to Meryl Streep, and film history shifted. Whether every detail of that story is fully accurate or not, it remains a perfect symbol of Kate Jackson's tragedy. Hollywood doesn't only take your strength, it can take the once-in-a-lifetime turning point you almost touched, simply because you didn't fit inside their schedule. Leaving Charlie's Angels, Kate Jackson did not lose. Nor was she pushed aside in the way people often assume happens to actresses who dare to step away from a phenomenon. Kate cut herself off from the machine that was feeding her fame, simply because she could no longer endure the feeling of being turned into an image that existed only to meet a broadcast schedule. After 1979, what haunted Kate wasn't the fear of losing the spotlight. It was the fear of losing herself. She understood that if she kept living inside that television rhythm like a machine, she would die before she ever became the artist she wanted to be. That's why Kate's shift was not a disappearance. It was a repositioning, as if she were pulling herself out of a poster to return to being a real human being, someone with choices, limits, and the right to say, enough. Kate didn't leave to chase something new for fun. She left to find the serious part of herself, the part Charlie's Angels had no room to hold. Kate began allowing herself to slow down. No more season-to-season grind, no more schedule where each day became nothing but an endless chain of tasks. From the outside, that pause could look like silence. But to Kate, it was rare oxygen. Time to breathe, time to choose scripts based on quality rather than heat, and time to prove she didn't survive only because of a pair of angel wings. Even before she walked away, Kate had already been quietly testing an escape from the cage through a small turn that revealed exactly who she was. She appeared in The Killer Bees, 1978, alongside James Brolin. It wasn't a major artistic statement, a thriller rather than a prestige piece, but it was a clear signal that Kate had always wanted a wider range. She refused to let her entire life be locked inside Sabrina's outline. The price of those choices, however, was an even harsher schedule, holding herself together inside Charlie's Angels while simultaneously trying to prove she was more than an angel who could deliver smart dialogue. That pressure only sharpened her clarity. Continuing like that would only extend exhaustion, not growth. Then came Making Love, 1982, where Kate revealed the kind of boldness she practiced with principle. The film, starring Harry Hamlin, chose a subject Hollywood was still nervous about at the time: same-sex love and the cost of living truthfully. This was the kind of project that could label you, risk your image, and, most importantly, offered no ratings insurance the way a hit series did. Kate still stepped into it because to her, this was the path out of the public's shallow gaze. The film later received lukewarm reaction and underperformed commercially, the kind of disappointment the press could easily spin as evidence that Kate was no longer relevant. But to Kate, it became proof of something far more valuable: the trace of a woman willing to take professional losses to protect her integrity. Better to do a controversial film without being adored than to keep living inside a famous role that was slowly suffocating her. And through that period, Kate Jackson seemed to be rebuilding her autonomy like a muscle. She was learning how to live without applause every Thursday night. She was trying to prove that her worth was not in audiences worshiping an image, but in her courage to walk away from it, then keep moving forward into roles that might fail, might make people uncomfortable, but at least were real. But Kate Jackson was never born to live forever as a fugitive. After years of pulling herself away from the addiction of fame, she returned to television, not as a star begging to be cast, but as a woman who had once been crushed and now came back with a new rule. She had to have control. Kate understood far too well what it felt like to have the production clock pressed against her back. She knew the price of letting other people decide everything, from her schedule to her status. So when Scarecrow and Mrs. King arrived in 1983, it wasn't simply a new series. It was Kate's second declaration. She was still here, still strong enough to carry a long-running television show, and most importantly, she would not allow anyone to turn her into a product ever again. In Scarecrow and Mrs. King, 1983-1987, Kate became Amanda King, a housewife pulled into the world of espionage, acting opposite Bruce Boxleitner. If Sabrina Duncan in Charlie's Angels was the symbol of beautiful and smart, then Amanda King was a far more difficult kind of character, ordinary yet fearless, lightly comic yet emotionally layered, a woman who seems normal until life throws her into situations that force her to grow, episode by episode. That contrast was exactly why Kate was so compelling. She didn't need to chase a poster-style seductive image. She held viewers' attention because Amanda felt real. She had fear, responsibility, daily rhythms, and the instinct to survive. Yet Kate didn't return to television to become a prisoner again. Scarecrow and Mrs. King became the clearest proof of Kate's longevity after Charlie's Angels, that she wasn't a one-hit star who burned out. And Kate wasn't only acting, she became involved as a co-producer through her own company, often mentioned under names like Shoot the Moon Productions, Shoot the Moon Enterprises, a move that shifted her from the face in front of the camera into someone who could influence the very breathing of the project. For a woman who had once been pressed flat by 14-hour days and scripts that were pretty but shallow, stepping into production was like reclaiming a backbone that had been taken from her. From there, Kate's interest in working behind the camera grew stronger, not as a hobby, but as a hunger. The need to control the rhythm of storytelling, the emotional pulse, the way a character would be seen. The idea of acting while directing was unstable at first, but Kate was the type of person who ran toward what frightened her. The more unfamiliar it felt, the more she needed to understand it. She learned to trust her professional instincts, the same instincts that once helped her fight for Sabrina, and now allowed her to read a set like a map of power. And in this period, Kate's professional personality became clearer than ever. She drew boundaries. No more show up whenever someone calls. No more running into production schedules like a machine. Kate began protecting her time like she was protecting her life. Some people could call that difficult, not easy to work with. But for Kate, it was a lesson paid for with her youth on Charlie's Angels. If you don't protect yourself, this industry will use you until you're hollow, and then replace you with someone else. That's why Amanda King was never just a role. She was Kate Jackson in a new form, a woman who knew how to say no, knew how to choose her pace, and knew that a career only means something if you still have enough strength left to live like a human being. But just when Kate Jackson thought she had finally learned Hollywood's hardest lesson, setting boundaries, protecting her time, claiming control, life quietly threw her into a battle, far more ruthless than any set, a battle with her own body. There was no broadcast schedule here, no audience, no lights to cover fear. And if one day her health betrayed her, who would Kate Jackson be when she could no longer stand inside the image the world had grown used to? In January 1987, Kate had her first mammogram, a decision that seemed like nothing more than a routine checkup, yet it opened the door to a nightmare. The results showed a malignant tumor. The most terrifying part of that moment wasn't only the word cancer. It was the lightning strike it delivered to a woman who had lived by control. Kate didn't scream. She didn't turn it into a dramatic story designed to earn sympathy. Her instinct was to hide. She told only one person, the show's producer, so the shooting schedule could be arranged. She checked into the hospital under a different name, as if she were trying to protect the last remaining right to privacy in her life. She underwent a lumpectomy, and just 1 week later, she was back on set. Her body had barely begun to heal from surgery, yet she stood in front of the camera as if nothing had happened, relying on painkillers to get through scene after scene. While the audience still saw a lively, quick-witted Amanda King, Kate was living a stretched, silent existence between pain and discipline. 5 continuous weeks of radiation therapy, and still she had to look normal, so no one could see how terrified she truly was. But fate wasn't satisfied with only one attack. In September 1989, another mammogram exposed the cruel truth. The cancer had not disappeared completely. It returned with the merciless precision of a predator. Right at the moment, a person begins to believe they've escaped. Kate was forced into a painful decision: a partial mastectomy followed by reconstructive surgery. This time, the pain wasn't only physical. It was the feeling of having part of her femininity stripped away. The very femininity the public had attached to her for years. And the realization that no matter how strong she was, she could not negotiate with illness. That second blow changed her deeply. If she once lived as a woman, determined to keep everything in her hands, after 1989, she began stepping out of silence, not to complain, but to transform her experience into warning. Kate became active in breast cancer awareness because she understood something brutal. Many people don't die only from the disease. They die because they look at it too late. Then in 1995, when the wounds of cancer still hadn't fully settled into calm memory, her body played another dangerous card. After a night of work, Kate felt drained, restless, and unable to sleep. A sensation that didn't feel like normal exhaustion. She was admitted to a hospital in Alabama, and tests revealed something shocking. Kate had been born with a congenital heart defect, an atrial septal defect, a small hole in her heart that had gone undetected for decades, even as she lived actively and worked like a machine. This time, there was no choice. Kate had to undergo open-heart surgery to repair it, a procedure that didn't just fix a heart, but rewrote her way of seeing life. Here, her instinct for control was useless. What saved her was another instinct, the instinct to live, accepting weakness, accepting help, accepting that some battles cannot be carried alone the way she once forced herself to do. After 1995, Kate Jackson was no longer simply the television star who once helped create an icon. She became a woman who understood the fragility of life at a deeper level, and that fragility gave her voice a rare weight. Kate spoke publicly about breast cancer and heart health, not to be praised for courage, but because she had seen how thin the boundary between life and death really is. And in 2003, that work was recognized with the Power of Love Award from the American Heart Association, an honor far less glamorous than television trophies, yet far more meaningful. It confirmed that what Kate left behind wasn't only performances, but a quiet legacy, helping others hold on to life before it becomes too late. After the moments when her body was dragged to the edge of the cliff again and again, Kate began to look at love through a different lens. It was no longer something that merely decorated a career. It was the place where people either leaned on each other to survive or slowly broke apart alone. That's exactly why the story of Edward Albert feels so significant, because he was one of the rare relationships that truly softened Kate during the period when she was still climbing toward the very top of American television. Kate met Edward Albert while both of them were living inside the actor's world. Irregular schedules, endless days swallowed by sets, and that strange kind of loneliness, standing in a crowd and still feeling hollow. Edward didn't carry loud, overpowering charisma. He wasn't the kind of man people feared because of status or control. He had a quiet, gentlemanly calm, enough to make a woman as guarded as Kate feel safe. They came together through empathy more than glamour. Two people who were used to the public seeing them as images and who, upon meeting, desperately wanted to be seen as ordinary human beings. Their relationship grew serious enough that Kate lived with Edward and became engaged to him in the mid-1970s. For Kate, it wasn't just romance. It was a real test of a true life. Home was no longer simply a place to collapse between shoots, but a space filled with habits, small daily friction, and unfiltered personalities. And that was exactly what exposed Kate's real difficulty. She was ambitious, fiercely self-directed, and deeply uncomfortable with any life structure that required her to revolve around someone else's orbit. Love demands presence, but Kate was constantly pulled away by the demands of her career. And even when work wasn't physically pulling her away, the pressure of work still sat inside her mind, making it difficult for her to relax like a woman who believes that loving is enough. Edward could offer warmth, but he could never replace what Kate treated as instinct, autonomy. They stood very close to marriage, yet ultimately stopped at the threshold, not because affection was missing, but because Kate understood that one more step could transform love into a kind of binding structure she could not survive inside, especially when her entire life already demanded constant trade-offs between career, identity, and emotional survival. The breakup with Edward Albert didn't destroy Kate Jackson's belief in love, but it left a very real scratch. She began to understand that her heart wasn't built to live easily inside a stable life. The brighter the lights became, the harsher the production rhythm grew, the more Kate leaned toward fast decisions as a form of self-rescue, as if holding tightly to someone's hand could keep her from being swallowed by loneliness. And in that context, Andrew Stevens entered her life like a completely different kind of choice. Younger, hotter, more glamorous, and more dangerous because he arrived at the exact moment Kate was both an icon and a woman being drained by fame. Kate and Andrew met while moving through the same television film world, a place where emotions often accelerate because schedules spin too fast, because intimacy is intensified by long shooting days and nights when people are too exhausted to know whether what they feel is real love or simply the desperate need for something to lean on. Andrew made Kate feel pampered, seen as a woman rather than merely an angel inspected by the public. The attraction happened quickly, fiercely, with an almost reckless intensity, the kind of love people dive into when the machinery of life is erasing their sense of self. They married in August 1978, right when Kate was still at the very center of Charlie's Angels, meaning her life barely belonged to her anymore. From the outside, the marriage was a curiosity magnet, television's goddess marrying a handsome, youthful actor. But inside, their marriage was suffocated by brutal reality. Kate belonged to the set more than she belonged to home. When a woman is forced into 12, 14-hour days, plus promotion, photo shoots, interviews, marriage can easily become something that exists only in name, dazzling in public, hollow the moment the door closes. Kate entered marriage not as a dreamer. She kept the same instinct for control and steel discipline that had kept her alive in the system. But that very structure made it hard for Andrew, a man who didn't live according to Kate's cold, regulated rhythm, to blend into her life. Their love was stretched thin by painfully ordinary problems: lack of time, incompatible pace, and the feeling of always coming second to the career. The more the show consumed her, the more Kate began to resemble someone who had energy only to work, with nothing left to be a wife in the soft, human sense. What should have been a shared life gradually became two parallel lines running through the same house. In 1981, Kate and Andrew divorced. Later, Kate reportedly described the separation with a bitter, cutting line. She felt her ex-husband drove a truck full of money into his bank account. It didn't sound like a woman trying to start a fight. It sounded like the reflex of someone who suddenly realized that love in Hollywood doesn't always end in tears. Sometimes it ends in cold numbers, and the feeling of being drained not only of health, but of trust. After the marriage with Andrew Stevens, Kate walked out with a brutal clarity. Love that burns like wildfire doesn't save anyone. It only makes you burn out faster. She had tasted enough bitterness of loving while being stared at by all of America in a world where every hug could become news and every argument could be turned into entertainment. Kate no longer wanted a man to enter her life like fireworks. She needed someone who arrived like solid ground, calm, practical, able to build a life with her, not just share a high. David Greenwald came at exactly that stage, a New York businessman, not an unstable artist type, not someone chasing spotlights. And because of that, he gave Kate a soothing illusion. Maybe this time, she could love like a normal woman. Their relationship formed in a more mature style, less noise, more life planning, more belief that two adults could build a stable structure together. Kate married David in 1982 in the mindset of someone who had just survived a divorce that forced her to wake up. She didn't just want to be loved anymore. She wanted to be protected from chaos. The most important part of this relationship wasn't romance. It was a decision that felt like an alliance. Kate and David co-founded a production company, Shoot the Moon Productions. It wasn't merely a career move. It was Kate's way of betting that a marriage could last if two people shared direction, ambition, and control over the future. For Kate, having a man enter her life without demanding she shrink herself, instead building power with her, was rare, almost intoxicating. It made her believe that love and career could finally sit at the same table without pulling each other down. But that partnership model quietly created its own cracks. When two people are both spouses and business partners, every decision carries double pressure. One mistake at work can bleed straight into the bedroom. Kate was so perfectionist, she could become almost harsh with herself. She had been trained by film sets, where delay meant loss. David carried the pragmatic instincts of business, where numbers and interests often outweigh emotions. They could understand each other intellectually, but that doesn't always mean they could reach each other in the softest, most human part. After 2 years, the marriage revealed its deepest pain. Kate was still Kate, a woman who could not live by constant compromise and who could never survive as the wife standing behind. She had escaped the cage of Charlie's Angels, so she refused to walk into a new cage under the name stability. By 1984, Kate and David divorced. Not loudly, not scandalously, but with the kind of exhaustion that comes from trying seriously and still failing. For Kate, it was the second time she learned a cold truth. Sometimes what destroys a marriage isn't betrayal or scandal. It's a difference so deep that two people cannot live together, even when both of them have tried with everything that was most grown up inside them. After her short-lived marriage to David Greenwald, Kate Jackson didn't just leave a man. She walked away from an entire idea she had once clung to with hope, that if you were mature enough, rational enough, and partner enough, marriage would last. When that illusion shattered, Kate began to feel tired. Tired of Los Angeles. Tired of parties where you had to laugh at the right moment. Tired of a kind of love that always seemed contaminated by ambition and image. It was during a vacation in Aspen, Colorado, that Kate met Tom Hart in 1989, a man completely outside Hollywood, untouched by spotlights or headlines, rooted in a world that felt like the opposite of everything Kate had lived. Snowy mountains, cold air, slow rhythms, and peace that didn't require witnesses. Tom owned a ski lodge in Utah, the kind of man who made Kate feel she didn't have to perform, even when there was no camera. With Tom, she wasn't seen as a star. She wasn't asked empty questions about ratings or scandals. She was seen as a woman who was exhausted and needed quiet. Their love didn't explode into a media frenzy. It felt more like warmth slowly returning to a body that had been freezing for too long. Kate loved Tom through the feeling of safety. Safe because he didn't belong to the machine that could swallow her. Safe because the life he represented didn't demand she trade pieces of herself in exchange for image. They married in 1991 and lived between two places, Los Angeles and Park City, Utah. For Kate, it was the first time marriage didn't require her to belong to Hollywood anymore. She entered family life as an act of rebirth, not to rescue her career, but to rescue the human part of herself. In this marriage, Kate became a stepmother to Tom's child. She tried to learn how to live inside a different structure, a home with children, ordinary habits, responsibilities that would never appear on magazine covers. She had spent her whole life protecting her independence as instinct, and now she stepped into the role of mother in a way that was not easy at all. No preparation time, very little room to fail, and no stage to hide the awkwardness. Yet the very peace Kate longed for soon revealed its crack. She carried too many years of living at the edge. Fame had trained her to stay guarded. The industry had trained her to never fully relax. And the emotional bruises from her previous marriages had taught her to keep questioning freedom. Kate wasn't the type who could dissolve into someone else's life. She wanted a home, but she also wanted an emergency exit. She wanted love, but she refused to be owned. Those contradictions weren't loud, but they were persistent. Different lifestyles, different tempos, and the truth that a woman who has spent too long saving herself will struggle to believe she can fully lean on anyone. The marriage to Tom Hart ended in divorce in 1993, after only 2 years. It carried no smell of betrayal or scandal. It felt like something sadder. Kate had tried to find a different life. But even outside Hollywood, Hollywood's shadow still lived inside her. And when the marriage collapsed, what remained wasn't just the loss of love. It was the painful realization that sometimes the worst thing isn't being abandoned, but discovering you yourself cannot stay. After her marriage to Tom Hart ended, Kate Jackson stopped searching for the right man, the way people often do after heartbreak. What she craved wasn't romance, and not even the comfort of being chosen. In 1995, Kate made a decision that changed her life. She adopted a son. The boy was named Charles Taylor Jackson, and that moment almost immediately rewrote the entire structure of Kate's existence. She was no longer a woman defined by roles or by the image of a television icon. She stepped into the simplest and harshest role of all, motherhood. For Kate, this wasn't about having a family for appearance. It was her way of giving herself a reason to live differently, a new purpose that didn't depend on ratings, contracts, or the public gaze. A child needed her presence, needed stability, needed hands and time, the very things Hollywood had nearly stolen from her. Once Charles entered her life, Kate could no longer survive in the rhythm of today 14 hours on set, tomorrow flying for publicity, the next day another city. So Kate quietly reshaped her life, appearing less, being seen less, in exchange for being truly present in the life of a child. For Kate Jackson, for the first time in decades, disappearing from the spotlight no longer meant failure, it meant freedom. In the late 1990s, Kate was still taking projects, still appearing on television, but the pace was completely different. The non-stop contracts of the Charlie's Angels era no longer appealed to her. In fact, they started to feel almost unbearable. The older she got, the less she could tolerate the atmosphere she had always hated. The toxic mix of professional politics, backstabbing, rumors, and meetings where everyone wore a mask. Kate wanted a life with her feet on the ground, a life where her days weren't defined by someone else's schedule. She left Hollywood without announcements, without drama, simply slipping away from the center to search for her own truth. She chose to live on a farm of about 125 acres in Keswick, Virginia, reconnecting the threads she had lost long ago. Old friends, no red carpets. No paparazzi hiding behind cars, just land, air, and a rhythm of living that could finally breathe. From time to time, she still appeared, but every appearance felt like a ghost stepping out of legend, then fading back into silence. In 2006, Kate Jackson appeared with Farrah Fawcett and Jaclyn Smith at the 58th Primetime Emmy Awards to honor Aaron Spelling. It wasn't a comeback to show off glory, but an emotional farewell to the man who had created their era. Then in 2007, Kate guest starred on Criminal Minds, playing the mother of Emily Prentiss, a small role but enough to remind audiences. The angel was still there. She simply no longer wanted to live inside other people's eyes. In 2008, she appeared again with an even softer presence as a guest judge on Jaclyn Smith's show Sheer Genius. Less a return than a brief visit to the past. In 2009, she attended Farrah Fawcett's funeral, no longer the dazzling trio of angels, but a woman standing in front of the loss of someone who had once shared the same fame that crushed them. After that, Kate almost completely hung up her halo. No films, no shows, no return in the way people were used to. But disappearing didn't mean perfect peace. When the lights went out, another kind of darkness emerged. Money and trust exploited. In 2010, Kate sued financial advisor Richard B. Francis, accusing him of misrepresenting her assets and pressuring her into unsuitable investment and real estate decisions, including the purchase of a roughly $2 million home in Santa Monica that she could not afford to carry. According to the allegations, the man used Kate's close relationship with Farrah to gain trust, and then twisted that trust into a tool. For Kate, it wasn't just financial loss, it was the final violation, even after she had already left Hollywood. The case ended in a confidential settlement, but the psychological stain was not so easily washed away. Entering the 2020s, Kate became the rarest kind of Hollywood symbol, a vanished legend. Fans heard only fragments, that she lived privately, her health was relatively stable, her focus was on personal life, as if she had chosen to erase herself from a story others kept trying to narrate for her. Until one unexpected moment set social media on fire. Kate appeared at the wedding of Gaston Richmond, Jaclyn Smith's son, held in Beverly Hills. A family celebration, yet it became an event for fans because Kate hadn't been publicly seen for over a decade. Images of her appearance, elegant, radiant, stunned people. Comments like, "She hasn't aged," "still glamorous," flooded social media. Not because they were only staring at her looks, but because that moment proved something. Kate hadn't disappeared because she collapsed. She disappeared because she chose to. Kate Jackson is the kind of woman Hollywood both respects and fears. Respects her because she had real talent. And even at the center of mass obsession, she kept the presence of someone who knew exactly what she wanted. Fears her because she never agreed to be an obedient, hollow symbol. When the lights were at their brightest, she demanded respect. When fame peaked, she walked away. When life became cruel enough to test her with illness, loss, and betrayal of trust, she still refused to perform pain for sympathy. She chose to live. What makes Kate Jackson haunting isn't how famous she once was. It's how she refused to let the world decide the value of her life. In an industry that keeps people trapped through hunger and desire, Kate is one of the very few who stepped out without turning back to apologize. She proved something few dare to admit. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't being seen forever. It's having the right to disappear at the exact moment you choose in order to preserve the human part of yourself. If you ever loved Kate Jackson or were ever shocked by her decision to walk away, leave a comment and share what you feel under this video. Don't forget to hit like to support the content. Share it with anyone who still remembers the smartest angel of Charlie's Angels. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more real-life stories. Stories that are often even more intense than fiction.